Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and today I am joined by author and returning guest, Brian McAuley, to talk about books and one of the most beloved children's horror shows of the 90s. So, yes, submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, I call this episode The Tale of Are You Afraid of the Dark Readalikes? So, welcome.
I'm sitting here silently trying to
You're like,
stifle
yay!
my laughter because I'm like, she's recording the intro. Don't ruin it. But I want to just like giggle and shout. I'm so excited.
I am too. We had been planning this episode for a while, and I was very excited because it gave me a reason to go back and fully rewatch the episodes and fully immerse myself in the nostalgia
Yeah.
of Are You Afraid of the Dark? And it was worth it.
Isn't it great to revisit? Like, I love how fast paced they are. That was something that struck me rewatching. I'm like, oh, they just get going immediately. And yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
And the vibes are just chef's kiss. My kids get creeped out by the opening credits.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's pretty iconic. The swing and the boat and the little clown figurine. It's just
the sound of the match.
Yes.
It was just perfect for all the creepy kids in the 90s. It was.
Yeah, it's like a Pavlovian dog thing. It just like cues you into like, okay, it's spooky time. I'm settling in. I just like, so good.
And so what was your history with it?
Definitely just have strong memories of growing up. Me and my childhood best friend, the same one that I would like read scary stories to tell in the dark with. Or we would like get the like cassette tape of scary stories to tell in the dark and like listen to it in a dark basement. And then also we would do Snick, the Saturday night Nickelodeon that like block that Are You Afraid of the Dark was like I think the last thing on it because like they closed with the darkest spookiest show after like lighter fare, like all that. And yeah, I just have such strong memories of watching these scary TV stories and just loving it so much. And it's just like so influential to have those sort of like every type of subgenre and monster and every type of like story twist are kind of just like baked into my brain. I feel like so many horror readers and writers were shaped by it.
Yeah. I mean, I love even the framing device of like a group of friends meeting in the woods around a campfire to tell ghost stories.
Isn't that so great? And that they had sort of serialized, not like deeply serialized stories happening in that framing, but there were some. Yeah, one that I rewatched was like the guy wanted to ask the girl on the date, but he was nervous. And then the story that he tells has that date element baked into it. It's just, I don't know, I love it. It really like speaks to the young adult experience.
Yeah. I remember watching that as a kid and thinking like that's what being a teenager is like. You get together with your friends in the woods and tell scary stories around a campfire, right?
I know. I didn't have nearly enough campfires in my youth. What the hell?
It was also, I was remembering the episodes that really stuck out to me and then rewatching them. I stand by it because some of the visuals really hold up or are pretty creepy and terrifying.
There's one I'll talk about later that the image of like the monster and also the dialogue of what the monster says is like, yo, that is heavy for a kid's show.
Oh man, the one that always stuck out to me was like the season 1, The Tale of the Lonely Ghost. Where the girl is trapped in the mirror and the girl's like staying with her cousin who's mean and she gets like dared to go into the abandoned house next door. And she goes into this room where "help me" is carved into the wall backwards everywhere. It is just a wall of carved "help me's," and she's screaming and she looks and there is like a pale child with like dark hair just like at the mirror. It's traumatizing.
Yep. Some of them, like the spookier one, like there were like gruesome monsters and stuff, but the ghostly, like psychological horror stuff. Like there was one about like the neighbor, the old woman who was like, oh God. And yeah, the young kid like betrays her by going to like a concert instead of hanging out with the old woman. And she's like, why did you leave me? And you're like, oh God, I'm sorry, Grandma.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about it. I mean, what were some of your favorites?
I mean, my go-to favorite was The Tale of the Ghastly Grinner.
Yeah.
I just like everything about it. Also, like in retrospect, I see how much it influenced my first book, Curse of the Reaper, because it's like this like cackling killer that comes out of the medium of the comic book and into the real world. But it's this like jester kind of Joker looking
Yeah.
yellow and blue uh creep with who just like oozes blue goo from his face, and he turns everybody into just like cackling maniacs. And also just the comic book element of it, like it gets very meta and fourth wall breaking. um that was the monster that really stuck with me.
That one's creepy. Um, The Lonely Ghost was definitely like my favorite, the one that stuck with me the most. And then I think you're going to talk about it later, but The Tale of the Chameleon with Tia and Tamara Mowry.
Yes.
Um, and there were so many. I'm just trying to
I think this came up on Twitter, but Dead Man's Float. Ooh,
yes.
God, that pool, that was one that made me scared of going in the pool, because it was
Yeah.
this like skeletal red kind of drippy, oh, ghost creature thing. And man,
Well, and it's like a very Jason-esque type opening where it's like the older brother wasn't watching his younger brother. He was flirting with this girl while the little brother is drowning.
I forgot that that's the backstory.
And it's like they're in a school gymnasium, and so they like like shut it away, like hide the pool. Which
Yes.
the funniest thing about that episode though is that they just like they find the entrance to the pool. That water is pristine and it's
Yeah.
supposed to be like decades later.
Everybody knows that pool maintenance is an absolute nightmare. All the algae that would have accumulated. But is that like supernatural? Because the pool itself wasn't
That's true.
supernatural, but like it was just haunted by a wait. So oh God, I forgot about that. That was the heartbreaking. There was a lot
Yeah.
of that in the show too. There were like they snuck a lot of like heartbreaking backstories, like the one that M. Night Shyamalan ripped off for The Sixth Sense, and he said that he did, which is like
Wait, which one is this?
the tale of the dream girl, which is a
Okay.
guy who keeps seeing this beautiful woman, and his sister is just like, leave it alone, like don't follow her, don't listen to her, and you find out that it's his dead girlfriend they died together, and he's stuck around, and she's trying to get him to follow her to the afterlife, and his sister doesn't want to let him go, and you're like, oh my God, so sad.
Oh my gosh. I
Yep.
did not know that.
Yeah.
The pop culture tidbit that Ryan Gosling wasn't one of these. And if you're watching it, I watched it through like Paramount Plus through Amazon Prime. And on the episode, it essentially says in parentheses, like, this is the one with Ryan Gosling, like
I love it.
featuring Ryan Gosling.
There are some good. One of my picks later has a pretty big starring role in it. But yeah,
Ooh,
Ryan Gosling was also in Goosebumps, the TV
yeah,
show. So he really he covered his bases there on the
he
childhood horror
did.
front.
I asked online what people's favorites were. And we mentioned one of the top ones was the Dead Man's Float for good reason. That
Yep.
creature design. I was rewatching it and I had completely forgotten everything about the episode. And the first time I saw it come out of the water, I was like, what in the world is that?
Yes. It's such a good creature design. It's got those like sunken skeletal eye sockets, and like, yeah. Oh.
When you Google it, and I did the image search for it, it blocks it out on Google. Like you have to tap to to
Oh,
reveal.
that's amazing. They're like, this is gonna fuck you up.
Content warning, disturbing.
Yeah.
A big one too is The Tale of the Midnight Madness, which is the like Nosferatu
Yep. That's a
movie
fun
theater
one.
one.
I think
Yeah.
that one has one of the recurring characters that I'll be
Yes.
talking about, Dr. Vink.
Yep.
Which is another fun thing about this show. It's like there were 2 or 3 recurring characters that would pop up and be like, uh-oh, here we go again. He's up to no good.
And The Tale of the Frozen Ghost, which is
Oh,
the one with the kid outside, like, I'm cold. I'm so cold.
isn't it wild that like that just those words, I'm cold, are such a, again, like everybody who grew up on the show would immediately like triggers a memory of that episode of like, that's what that is. Oh,
I was watching with my kids. My son tapped out of a few of them.
yeah.
He was like, ugh. You know, he would watch the opening credits and be like, I don't know if I can do this.
Oh, that's understandable.
But I watched it with my daughter, and we watched the one with like the Sandman and the dreams.
Yeah.
It's like the fairy tale one, but the girl's name was Sophie, and her name is Sophie, so she was like
Oh,
all in on it.
that's so sweet. And isn't that the one with Bobcat Goldthwait? Is that who plays the Sandman?
Maybe. I
Yeah.
think you're right.
So many weird cameos.
All right. Well, are we ready to talk about our picks?
So ready.
All right. I'm starting off with Tale of the Pinball Wizard. Is so fun in the most like 90s mall like game nostalgia way.
It's so fun to like throw back and immerse in that world of like,
Yeah,
oh, the mall.
the mall. But we're following this kid who is a bad kid, and we know this because he's stealing coins from the fountain and fighting off an apparently unhoused woman for these coins, like knocking her over. So you were not supposed to like this kid. He finds solace in this like antique shop, and then there's this proprietor who has this like pinball machine under wraps, and he like says he's going to watch the store for a little bit, and the guy's like, oh, you know, don't touch that machine. But of course, as soon as he's gone, he immediately starts playing this pinball machine, and he finds himself essentially in this pinball machine. But it's like he's at the mall and having to like save the princess and do these tasks and fight this thing. And it's such a odd story, but it's also got like a dark ending. Like he doesn't get out. Like he is stuck in that pinball machine.
Does it end with the? I'm remembering now the image of the ball coming up on the escalator. Is that?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's right. So dark.
And it's like even when he does win, it doesn't matter.
Nope.
It's just
That's the
he's
life
forever.
lesson, children.
Don't be a bad kid. Don't be stealing coins from the mall fountain. Or you'll be stuck in a mall purgatory.
Yep, which actually sounds nice. But yeah, I feel like there was some moral, like the
Yeah.
laughing in the dark, right? He steals the nose, so it's like, don't be stealing things from carnivals.
So I had two picks for this. One of them I feel like is very on the nose because it is a YA horror book about a haunted pinball machine. So I felt like it had to be mentioned. This is Dead Flip by Sarah Fairson. This is one of the YA picks for Summer Scares this year. And it is like very Stranger Things-esque. We got like dual timelines. It's this group of 3 friends, and one of the friends goes missing, and they realize essentially he got sucked into like a haunted pinball machine.
What?
And they have to get him out.
That's awesome. I really want to read this now.
It was really fun, and I don't know how authors feel about their work getting comped to like big pop culture things, but it is very Stranger Things-esque, like just nailing those vibes.
Yeah, just like immersing you in that. Yeah.
On a more dark note, like a more adult side, there's The Odds by Jeff Strand, which is a protagonist with a gambling addiction. He is at a casino and he's approached by someone who says like, do you want to play a game? And like, here's a chance you could win all this money back. And at first it's like pretty easy. Like, you know, he just like spins a number and like everything's fine. But he can't say no as the stakes get higher and higher.
Oh no.
And eventually like he thinks he's like escaped it, but he hasn't escaped it. Like they have found him and he is very much still in this game.
Oh, I love those endings that like we talked about where it's just like, nope, you're still trapped. And it's like
nothing you can do.
Sit with that.
It just escalates and it's like, no, you're part of this game. So actually here's a list of tasks you have to do. You need to go to this place. Like, here's your mission. Should you choose to accept it, you need to accept it. That is
I love that. And it sounds like it pairs well with the episode in that it's like the increasing gamified tasks that they have to accomplish.
Yeah. So those are my 2 for The Tale of the Pinball Wizard. I have The Odds by Jeff Strand and Dead Flip by Sarah Fairson.
Amazing. My first pick is The Tale of the Full Moon. And this tells the story of an IMDb refers to the character as an aspiring pet detective named Jed. And so the idea is like he really wants to have a dog, but his mom won't let him. So instead, he investigates like when animals go missing in the neighborhood and tries to help people find them. And a lot of animals have been going missing in their neighborhood recently. And he starts to suspect that his new neighbor, Mr. Anchors, is a werewolf. And that only gets more complicated when Jed's mom invites her new boyfriend over for dinner, and it's Mr. Anchors. I love that this episode tackles like the very 90s kid stuff of like, single mom is dating a new guy, and I don't really trust this dude. He's probably a werewolf. And the twist, I think it's okay for us to spoil the twists of Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes,
Yeah,
right?
I spoiled Pinball Wizard. He's stuck in pinball purgatory.
So the twist is it's not Mr. Anchors that is the werewolf, but his brother Gordon. And Mr. Anchors has been taking care of Gordon and protecting him. And an even further twist is that mom already knows this and is just very sympathetic to the fact that it's, a disease of lycanthropy that this guy's dealing with. And in the end, they all live happily ever after. It ends with them like barbecuing, and Mr. Anchors is gives Gordon a raw steak while he's cooking the other ones. And Jed is playing fetch with dog Gordon because he always wanted a dog, and now he has one in his werewolf stepdad's brother. What an ending.
This one was so wholesome,
right?
I loved it, and I was like, okay, we're going in like a Fright Night werewolf direction kind of thing. And then I'm like, oh, it's so cute. Like the blended family lived happily ever after. They're barbecuing like at night. Like it's so cute.
Yeah, it's one of the sweeter, like bizarrely sweet endings that really stuck with me. And for that reason, I am going to pair this with Good Dogs by Brian Asman. This book will be out on October 1st. I was grateful to read it in advance. And it's very much found family vibes. Delia is a den mother to a group of werewolves living in Southern California. And when a severed limb turns up in their yard, she has to relocate them to protect the pack. And they move to this abandoned town in the wilderness. And there's something else sinister waiting for them there. But yeah, I won't say too much about it. It's not out yet, but they're both werewolf stories with really big hearts. Like you really love the characters. It's about family, and it mixes the sort of humor with character development and also some very gnarly werewolf slasher violence, which is super fun. So yeah, definitely a good pair. The Tale of the Full Moon with Good Dogs by Brian Asman.
It's all about family,
right? That's
Vin Diesel approves.
Yeah. Vin Diesel would make a good werewolf.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, my next pick is The Tale of the Shiny Red Bicycle. And this is about a young boy, Mike, who is riding his bike with his friend Ricky when they stop to talk on a bridge. And his friend tragically falls into the water, and Mike is unable to save him. 5 years later, Mike is still having nightmares and begins seeing Ricky everywhere. And I cannot stress enough how every single adult in this episode is annoyed with Ricky for not being over the traumatizing event that is witnessing his friend die right in front of him and him not being able to save him. It's
oh, they're the worst. Parents just don't understand. Adults are the worst.
It was 5 years later, and even the guidance counselor is like, you're still not over this?
Very 90s.
Yeah. It is. Like, there's a scene where they're driving and they see a red bicycle, and like Mike like runs out of the car, and he's like, that's Ricky, and like runs after this kid on the red bicycle, and like catches up to him, and it's not Ricky, and his dad is like, you gotta let this go, bud. It's been 5 years.
Oh my God.
Are you like, at the breakfast table, like, and you're still having nightmares?
Oh, get over it.
It's giving like that scene in Princess Diaries where Lily Moscovitz is like, oh, is this about your dad dying? I thought you were over that. Of course, to link this to Taylor Swift, because of course it just reminded me of that line in You're Losing Me. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry that my pain is such an imposition." Because it
Ooh,
truly is.
ooh. I wish I could see the child say that line in an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode.
But I'm pairing this with one book. But I did want to mention Ghost Eaters by Clay Chapman, because I feel like that's also a grief horror with a protagonist who also, at the beginning of the story, is blaming themselves for the death of their friend because he was an addict. And, she's like, I'm taking the tough love approach. Like, he's reaching out to me. I'm not going to answer this time. Like, he needs to get help. And then that night, he overdoses and dies. So,
Right.
I mean, that's the setup for the story. That is literally how the story starts. Is this
Totally.
character battling these tough emotions. But I am pairing this with The Night Country by Stuart Onan, which I picked up under the promise of it being like a spooky story told by the perspective of ghosts, and I found it utterly devastating.
Oh no.
Now it's like, it's set on Halloween, we're following some ghosts. So essentially, you are following the ghosts of a group of teenagers following their grieving families on the anniversary of their death, which was on Halloween. Like, they all died in a car accident.
Oh.
And you're following, as they go through like all their different parents' house and just see how they are moving on with their life. And there was 2 teens in the car that survived. One was left disabled, and one just has crushing survivor's guilt. It is a very
so heavy.
It's set on Halloween though, and it's like ghost POV.
Yeah.
But yeah, I read it for the podcast and I was like, this is devastating, and I have cried several times reading this book.
Oh, that sounds so good though.
It was very good. Yeah, just the way that the accident has even rippled through the town, like on the anniversary of the teen's death, and like one of their moms is going to like the crash site and like leaving a wreath, just like all these little actions, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild that such a heavy topic of grief was baked into the children's TV show episode. I'm just like, and handled terribly by the adults in the episode. They did not model it very well how to deal with grief. But like, man, that's heavy.
Yeah. Well, and the episode takes a positive turn where he is seeing the ghost of his friend who was warning him about a danger that ends up saving his like little brother's life.
Right. Oh.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm not." He's like, "I don't blame you at all. Like, I'm actually here to save you. Like, I'm here to like tell you something."
Yeah. Oh, I love that twist. I forgot about that with like the water. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just like can't imagine. I'm like, I watched that episode and I'm like, I could not imagine how I would move on with my life if I watched at a young age, watch someone die in front of me and like felt that it was my fault because I couldn't save them. Like, I couldn't hold on to them. I didn't grab them in time.
Oh, that would ruin me forever.
Yeah.
And that poor child needs therapy as soon as possible.
Not from the school guidance counselor though.
Right? That's very 90s, right? Like, give it to the guidance counselor who has no training.
No. All right, what's your next pick?
My next pick is, this is a good one. The Tale of the Dangerous Soup, which is just a hilarious title to begin with. This one stars a young Neve Campbell before she became our Scream Queen, Sydney Prescott.
Baby Scream Queen.
I know, but I'm like, I think it was only a couple years before, maybe even only 1 year, because Scream was 96. This couldn't have been that much before that. Yeah. So she works at a restaurant called The Wild Boar, and it's the talk of the town because they have this delicious soup that everybody's going crazy for, and they charge $100 a bowl for this soup, which, like, accounting for inflation is like, that's very expensive soup to begin with, even.
Yeah.
And of course, the cook turns out to be Dr. Vink, who is the recurring character in the AYAOTD universe. He's always up to no good with his haunted film reels and dangerous soup. And it turns out that he is trapping people in this locked claustrophobic room at the restaurant. And like this trapdoor opens and this little gargoyle statue comes out of the smoke. And you hear Vink's voice say, "It knows what scares you." And then the person's worst fear manifests in the room. Like the one in the opening scene is like, snakes. And the statue, we find out, like, feeds on fear and then, like, oozes out this elixir that he then puts in the soup, and it's bananas. I don't, I don't know. So really fun episode. Nev Campbell's fear is like she's claustrophobic, so when she gets trapped in there, the walls start to like close in on her, which is always an upset. I
No.
hate that. I hate when that happens in movies. And I'm pairing this one with Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy. This one will be out October 15th from Shortwave Books. And it is an excellent novella. I don't want to say too much, so I'll just read the quick description, which is: a young musician finds himself locked inside a gas station bathroom in the middle of the night by an unseen assailant, caught between the horrors on the other side of the door and the horrors rapidly skittering down the walls inside. So this for me was like an easy pairing of claustrophobic horror. You've got a character trapped in a room, and like the worst fears are starting to come out of the walls here. Yeah, I mean, if you know Nat's work, you know that you're gonna love this one. And just a weird little Easter egg bonus is that, you know, if you read Nestlings, you know that there's a gargoyle thing happening there, and in Dangerous Soup, it's a little gargoyle statue. But yeah, it's a quick read novella, super claustrophobic and scary, and pairs very well with Dr. Vink's Soup.
Ooh, I'm so excited about this one.
It's fun. I mean, Shortwave, I'm biased, but they make such great books. And yeah, Nat and I will be doing an event together in December for our respective Shortwave books in Doylestown, so that'll be fun. But yeah, this book is so good.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, my next pick is The Tale of the Mystical Mirror, which even in the 90s we were talking about like beauty horror and the beauty industry.
Oh my god, yes.
The synopsis for the episode is: best friends Cindy and Laurel find terror lurking beneath the beautiful images of the posh Elysian beauty salon. And like in the beginning of the episode, it's like these two cool teen girls that are like working at this salon, and then one of the girls' friends comes in and wants to work there, but then one girl's like, you're just not pretty enough to work here, like you are not stylish enough. But the owner gives her a makeover, so then she is able to work there.
Oh my god. There's a yeah, it's a full she's all that transformation.
Yeah, she took off her glasses and suddenly she was beautiful the whole time. Like the two best friends were hanging out, and she was like, one of the friends that worked there originally has like a date that night, and she was like, oh, the other girl borrowed my watch and I need it for my date. I really wanted to wear this watch on my date. I'm like, a watch?
Yeah.
But anyway, that is the reason they like find the girl who was invited to the owner's house, and like the owner has kind of made comments like, oh no, I've been doing this for a very long time, or like, you know, I'm older than you think. And like you find out she is like essentially like sacrificing these young girls like to keep her young. But I just thought the idea that the reason they have to hunt this girl down is because she has a date and she really needs this specific watch for her date, just to go with her outfit.
If I'm going on a date and a girl doesn't have a really nice watch, I'm like, I'm out.
But I don't know, there's been such a resurgence in like beauty horror that I've really been into. So of course I wanted to pair this with Rouge by Mona Awad, which was one of my favorite reads of last year. This follows like a woman whose mother has died, so she's taking care of her affairs, like packing up her apartment, when she gets this like invitation for a spa her mom used to go to. And it's just like a very exclusive, like secret society vibes kind of deal with like all these different procedures and massages and facials and interesting stuff. And if you've read anything by Mona Awad, you know she tends to lean into the kind of like surreal, like Lynchian, like fever dream type of vibes. I loved this one. And also Youth Juice by E.K. Sathu, which is very like young girl works at this very like goop adjacent like wellness brand in New York that maybe has a dark secret about its disappearing interns.
Ooh. Yeah, I have a copy of this one and I can't wait to read it. It looks so good and I've heard great things. Ugh.
So I thought all those paired really well with the tale of the mystical mirror. And she saves the day by breaking the mirror. She doesn't want to look in the mirror. That's what ends
There
the
it is.
curse.
See, that's a good message. We don't need
Yeah.
mirrors or scales. Screw that industry. This is okay. This kind of leads nicely in some ways into my next pick, which is the tale of the doll maker. This was oh man, this is another one that like haunting imagery for a lot of people. So it tells the story of Melissa, who visits her aunt and uncle in the country like once a year. And it used to be boring until this family moved in next door. They had a daughter her age named Susan. So now she always looks forward to going to visit and hanging out with Susan. But this year she goes and she finds out that the family has moved away. And then she finds out that they moved away because Susan disappeared and they couldn't deal with the grief. God, there's so much grief in this show. And so Melissa sneaks into the abandoned house and finds this dollhouse in the attic and discovers that Susan is trapped inside the dollhouse and slowly becoming a doll. And so Melissa has to try to go into the dollhouse and save her before they both get trapped and become dolls. So, real creepy.
So creepy. I remember being stressed out watching this because like she is also like becoming a doll, so she has to do these things before like she loses the ability to like move and like
Yes.
outsmart things, and I'm like, I don't know if I would be smart enough to do
Right? She does
to
this whole
outsmart
thing
this.
like she like uses rope kind of like poltergeist style so that she can find her way back from like the dollhouse that's becoming the real house. And there's just this uncanny nightmare imagery of Susan's face, like the makeup effect of like her face is turning into porcelain. And I think if I remember correctly, doesn't her porcelain hand come off at one point?
I
It's
think
just like,
so.
oh, it's just so unsettling. And yeah, stressful, like you said, because there's this like ticking time bomb of like can't move anymore, starting to like freeze into a doll. Um, so I have paired this one with a book called William by Mason Coyle. And in the title and name William, the eyes are number ones because essentially, if you take Tale of the Doll Maker and you replace the doll with an AI robot and you replace the dollhouse with a smart house, then you have something close to William, which is about this reclusive scientist Henry who created this AI robot named William. And he lives in this remote house with his pregnant wife, who is not really a fan of the work that her husband does. And they become trapped in this smart house with the AI robot. This is another quick read, so I won't say anything more about it. But if you like sci-fi horror, AI creepiness, this one is just like such a fun, quick read, and it reads like an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, including like a really like gut punch ending. And just yeah, it's a really fun one. It's coming out September 10th from Putnam. And I guess Mason Coyle is a pen name for Andrew Piper, who has
Oh,
published books
yeah.
on um,
Interesting.
yeah, I think it's because it's a slightly different genre than what
Yeah.
they normally write in. Um, but man, this one is real creepy. And yeah, it's kind of like the updated sci-fi version of a dollhouse with like AI smart house. It's all creepy stuff.
This reminds me of Smart House, the decom.
Yes. Oh my god.
I love that movie.
I'm partial to what was the Leprechaun one?
The Luck of the Irish.
Luck of the Irish. Oh my god, it's so weird. Similar to the doll maker in that isn't he slowly becoming a leprechaun?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
we were raised on weird stuff.
And it made us better. All
Yes.
right. I am pairing my last pick with The Tale of the Curious Camera. And the IMDb synopsis for it is constantly bullied, Matt gains incredible power when he discovers a magic camera. And we talked about the framing device, which is like all these teens getting together to tell these scary stories, and like they all get assigned a week to tell a scary story. But I love the opening line for this one. Some kids are born to lead, others to follow, and some kids, like Matt Dorney, are born victims.
Oh my god. That's like the Addams Family line, the I'll play the victim all your life.
Yeah.
That's just so
It immediately opens up with him he's like the manager for the basketball team, and so they're lining up for like pictures, and he gets bullied by the kids on the team, and they get like ketchup all over his shirt like right before he has to take a picture. So then he gets the picture, and when he opens it, it's just an empty stool.
right.
There's nothing there. So he goes to talk to the photographer. And I wrote this in the notes because this photographer is one of my favorite characters. And this is a kids show, and I believe he would be smoking a cigarette saying this, but
Yep.
he is not because it is a children's show. He says, I used to be a pretty decent photographer. Always reveal the inner man. That was my motto. And the kid says, what's your motto now? Take cash. Checks bounce.
Oh my god.
Just like this cynical photographer who had to sell out and wasn't able to really get into the art of photography. Just lost his way.
Yep. And
But he gifts him. Yeah, now he's doing school photography. I had a summer job where I worked for a photographer who did like the school photography and stuff for like the areas. Yeah, so I would go to proms, I would go to like graduations. It was like my college summer job, so I wasn't there for like school pictures, but like he would do like the school pictures for the area.
I just rewatched, actually, because I was rewatching Are You Afraid of the Dark, I saw that Doug was also available to stream, the animated show from Nickelodeon. And the first episode is like, they moved to a new town because his dad got a job being a photographer for a department store. And I'm like, in what world nowadays could anybody move to get for a job as a photographer at a department store? Like, those are different times.
Yeah. Wasn't it like Married with Children? Wasn't he like a shoe salesman?
Yep.
And he had like a giant suburban house, multiple bedrooms, like 2-car garage. Like what was that world like?
Yeah, he wasn't driving Uber on the side to make ends meet.
No.
Yeah.
Insane. But this cynical photographer gives him this like old Polaroid camera, and he starts like immediately taking pictures, and it seems to tell the future. Like he takes a picture of himself and there's like an oil stain on his shirt, but then later he does do something where there is an oil stain on his shirt, or he like takes a picture of a vase and the vase is broken, and then the vase breaks.
Yes.
And then he sees that there's like a little gremlin in the pictures.
Yes.
It's like very high stakes. Like his parents are out, and it kind of seems like their parents are going to get into a car accident, and he and his little sister have to like team up to beat this gremlin. And they seem to like get it out of the camera, but then at the end it seems that it's gotten into the computer. So it's going to be like a computer virus is the ending.
Yes, the high-tech upgrade. Doesn't the little gremlin make little weird gremlin, even though you don't actually see it, it's just like in the images, but there's still weird little like gremlin sounds?
Yeah, you need to. But I'm pairing this with the novella Ghost Camera by Darcy Coates, which she had published when she was indie, and now it's getting like republished with source books in like a short story collection, like a physical copy. So I read it that way. And this is about a wedding photographer who is shooting a wedding, and she like goes up into a lighthouse to get like a higher up angle, and she finds like an old Polaroid camera and just starts like taking pictures with that, and is surprised that it still works. And someone's like, a little kid died here, he was pushed to death, like he fell out of the lighthouse. She's like, oh man, I guess I have his camera. But she starts looking at the Polaroids that come out, and it seems that there's like ghosts in the pictures. And they like, every time she takes it, it seems like they become like aware of her, and they're like looking at her. And every time she takes a picture, they're getting closer.
Ooh.
And so she tells her roommate about this, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And there's a scene where they're like online looking up like paranormal experts, and then everyone they talk to is like does not want to touch this case. They're like, I don't know, I think you're just get rid of it, but I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with this.
Like, no thanks. Until she finds a school photographer who's like, are you going to pay cash or?
Well, and then, oh, I forgot to mention in that episode, like that photographer was like unloading that camera because like he had it gifted to him and then it gave him bad luck and like ruined his life.
Yeah.
And so like as soon as he gives it to the kid, he's like off with models, like being flown, like being this like hotshot photographer in like the most cartoony way.
I remember that. I forgot. And he's like, sorry, kid. You gotta, you're cursed now.
Like it found me, it picked you. Like that's all. And he like can't get rid of it.
Oh, so good. It's like, and it's also, this is so much Say Cheese and Die. Goosebumps, like such a similar, And did you see there's a movie called Polaroid that is like kind of the same idea.
No.
It's pretty good for like a low budget horror movie, but it's that haunted Polaroid really gets you.
Yeah. They didn't have the like 2008 digital camera where you're like uploading all your pictures to a Facebook album.
Oh
horror.
My God. That's the true horror. I very recently went back and like expunged all of those and was just like, how did we go to like bars in college with a digital camera with the flash on? Just like, and then,
oh my gosh. And then my friends would post like hashtags that were like a sentence, but it was just all the inside jokes of that night, but as hashtags. Like hashtag you should know better. Hashtag.
Oh my God.
It was different times. Times.
All right, my final pick. So I'm going to flip it and talk about the book first, and then I have 2 episodes to pair it with. So the book is The Night Guest by Hildur Knudsendotter. That's my best attempt at pronouncing it. And it is about a woman who is suffering from fatigue, and the doctors are not being helpful at all. And so one night she straps on an Apple Watch and wakes up to discover that she walked 40,000 steps last night while she was sleeping. So she's trying to figure out what is happening when she's asleep. Why is she waking up with these weird, increasingly disturbing injuries? And why doesn't anybody believe her? So it's this is another I read this book in a day. So won't say too much about it, but it's coming in September from Nightfire. And the 2 episodes I'm pairing it with are The Tale of the Night Shift. I mean, it's a similar title, Night Guest, Night Shift. And this episode is about Amanda, who works the night shift at a hospital, where she sees that all the employees are starting to act strange and increasingly weak and fatigued around her. So immediately I thought of this just because of the whole, like, the hospital setting in the book, like the doctors don't believe her, and the whole like fatigue and like why am I so tired all the time, and it's leaving people sick and drained. And in the episode, the answer is vampires, obviously. And the cover of the book is like blood being poured into a wine glass, but it's much more complicated than vampires in the book, I'll say, which is not a spoiler. This is the one I was referencing earlier about like when you see the vampire, he's like got this like wrinkly green face and red eyes, super creepy makeup effects. And there's a point where he holds the protagonist like off of the roof and says, I should drop you and lick up what's left. And You're like, whoa, man.
That's dark.
That is some gnarly imagery. But it's one of my favorites. And the other one that I paired it with is The Tale of the Chameleons. As you mentioned, this one stars Tia and Tamara Mowry. And I love that this is the description from IMDb. When a chameleon bites a girl at a pet store, the lizard takes on her form and plots to take over the world. Which is, that's what it is. So it pairs well because it's this idea that like there's this kind of like other doppelganger type character like slowly taking over your life and nobody believes you and what are they doing in your place kind of thing, and the paranoia of it all. So if you like The Tale of the Chameleons and The Tale of the Night Shift, I think you'll enjoy The Night Guest, coming in September.
Ooh. I have it on my shelf. I need to read it. But this just reminded me of, do you remember how a few years ago everyone was freaking out about like zombie preparedness, survival? Like that was the big like pop culture thing. Like I
Yep.
think you should also have like, instead of security questions with your friends, have like doppelganger
Oh,
questions where you're like, these are like, this is an answer only I would know.
I love that. That's so
In case
important.
I've in case I have an evil doppelganger situation.
Yeah,
Like this is the security question to ask me.
especially with there's like the supernatural version, but also the like AI version of that. It's like we got to protect ourselves against getting replaced by replicants. We need to,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the next, yep, that's the next thing to protect against.
Yeah, that chameleon episode was dark. And I just remember being so stressed out as a child because it is like, no, I'm the real one. No, I'm the real one. And the
Yep.
friend is just stuck, like, oh no, wait, which one? And it's like, no, for real, it's me. No, it's
Yeah.
me.
And isn't the solution just spraying them with water?
With
Is what,
water.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
why would
water.
that be a threat to the one who isn't? It's not like they're going to shoot them with a gun, right? You just hose them both down, right?
Yeah, I don't know. But she ends up like falling down the well. And then
Oh,
twist, it's the good one that fell down the well. And the evil one
that's
survived.
so dark. And that's
Hmm.
how The Ring starts. It's actually Tia Mowry playing Samara. Samara? Tamara? It's a bit close.
Yeah. Hmm. That's how it happens. Are we ready to talk chilling obsessions?
Let's do it.
I will say, I, for the first time, saw the John Waters masterpiece that is Serial Mom.
Yes! This was a huge one for my youth growing up. Yep.
Really?
And I both like loved it because it was genuinely scared me and also was weirdly funny. And
It's so funny.
yeah.
Also, like, surprise, Matthew Lillard was not expecting that.
Yeah, I think it's like 2 years before Scream, right?
Yeah.
And Ricky Lake.
Mm-hmm. But just this, like, picture perfect suburban family, but just this unhinged mom. And I think the first look into this we get is that she's making these like prank phone calls to a neighbor, just saying like awful, grotesque stuff to her to upset her. But I just love that she's like a machine. Like anytime she is wronged, like that person will die. She cannot hold herself back, even when the police are onto her, even when they are at the courthouse. Like she cannot, if she is slighted, you will die.
Yep. It's so good. It's such like the delight of just like, uh-oh, they crossed the line. Now we know what's gonna happen. She's gonna get beat with a turkey leg. Like, what?
Mhm. And just even the absolute chaos of the courtroom scene where she turns everyone against a witness because she does not recycle, and everyone turns against this witness
Yeah.
because she does not recycle.
That's some good John Waters just like logic. I love it so much.
This is added to the I support women's wrongs canon for
Yes.
me.
Yes. Good for her.
They shouldn't have wronged her. That boyfriend shouldn't have broken her daughter's heart.
No. Oh, he absolutely deserved it.
And she keeps being so mad about Matthew Lillard's friend not wearing a seatbelt while driving. And every time the cops are sniffing around, she's like, and he doesn't wear a seatbelt. Did you see? Did you see him when he was driving? Not wearing a seatbelt.
It's so good.
What have you been enjoying?
My chilling obsession. All right. So last time I was on when we talked Goosebumps, my chilling obsession was I discovered this year-round horror store near me called Terror Trader. And since then, they have partnered with a local independent cinema and they do a weekly horror movie screenings called Spookorama.
Mm,
So I went to the very first one, which they screened the 2013 Evil Dead, which was super fun to revisit.
yeah.
And a couple of weeks ago, I went to a sold out screening of Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which, like, seeing that was a childhood favorite. So seeing it on the
Yeah.
big screen in a theater of 300 people was amazing. And next week, I'm going to see Scream 2. And the week after that is Final Destination 3. which is my favorite Final Destination. And I just love that they just have very good taste with the movies that they screen.
Are they going to be giving out Stop merch?
So this is like
Scream 2?
People get dressed up. Like there were a lot of clowns at the Killer Clown screening, and they're telling everybody like for Scream 2, like you better come wearing your ghost face masks. And I'm like, it's actually going to be kind of scary to be
that would scare me
in the opening scene of Scream 2, watching Scream 2. Like, so yeah, I will take pictures and report back.
I would not go to the bathroom during the screening.
That's what. Oh, so upsetting.
That was I was gonna say it's a very upsetting opening. Actually, the first 3 openings I feel like are extremely upsetting.
Oh my god.
For Scream.
Yep, very much so. Yeah. I forget how 2 really is like the biggest leap into meta horror, because that was when they were like, oh, there's a film franchise based on the movie. Like, it's like, oh right, they just really like took a great leap into like, yep, meta.
All right, and our second tradition is to ask our guests for a final girl song.
Yes. All right. So for this one, I'm going with what has become my personal anthem for Candy Cane, my slasher book and upcoming sequel. And this is a band who you and I both love, called Mannequin Pussy. The song is I Got Heaven, and it just has the energy. So I'm going to read some quick lyrics because they're very final girl energy. She says, I'm stuck inside my loneliness. I'm stuck inside my grief. I wish I could have been there to save you from the reach. I am spiteful like a god, seek a vengeance like the rest. For what they did to you, I will never lay to rest. So that to me is like pure like loneliness, grief, and I am spiteful and vengeful, and I'm for what they did to you, I'm gonna get back at them. That's Act 3 final girl energy, big time.
Yeah. I'm excited. When is Candy Cane Kills 2?
It is coming out November 12th from Shortwave Books. Yes, very excited. And yeah, it picks up immediately where the first book left off. They're both very short reads, novellas. And yeah, I'm excited for people to read it.
Yay. I am jealous you got to see Mannequin Pussy live. They were sold out.
I know.
When I tried to go see them.
It was so good. I'm very grateful to the friend that got me into the show because it was sold out. And they were playing like pretty intimate venues, which I loved, but I feel like now they're gonna keep getting bigger because they're just so good.
Yeah, that was the thing here. It was a small venue, and I was like, no.
Yep.
When shows are announced there, it's like so tough.
Yeah.
That's cool though. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and chatting. Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Thank you so much for having me. We need to get the bucket of water to.
I was gonna say we need to like.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much. I could do this for days.
Yeah, it was funny. I was on the wiki, like getting like plot details from like ones I didn't have time to rewatch, and there really is like all this trivia. Like this is one of the 20 episodes where they actually don't pour water; they do this instead. And I'm like, oh, someone is keeping track and has the data.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh.
Books in the Freezer is a bi-weekly podcast. We release episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Books in the Freezer, or send us an email at booksinthefreezer@gmail.com. Show notes for this episode and all previous episodes are at booksinthefreezer.com, where you will find a list of the books mentioned. You can also find links to various ways to support the podcast, things from Patreon to merch, because is it really summer if you don't have a What is Your Final Girl Song shirt or sweater or sticker? But a free and easy way to support the podcast is to just leave a review. You can leave a star rating on Spotify or leave a few words on a site like Apple Podcasts. Those are appreciated and help the podcast gain more visibility, which is huge to indie podcasts like this one. I have been your host, Stephanie Gagne. Thank you for listening, and see you next time on Books in the Freezer.